Today's topic is...
breaking down the 8th Legion's design and lore.
Ave Dominus Nox.
What?
It means it's time to get spoopy.
Ooh.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to WAYPN. I'm Cal.
And I'm Sunny.
Today we're going to be covering the pre-heresy design, post-heresy design, and redesign of the 8th Legion.
And within these topics, we'll be covering design breakdown, design analysis, art, design versus lore, and final notes.
Let's get on with it. I couldn't find a pre-heresy marine like we usually do.
You mean the one where you tricked me?
Yes, the one that I show you, which is before they meet their Primarch.
Exactly. So, who are we taking a look at today?
It's this fella right here.
Oh, it's a nightlord dude.
Uh-oh, sound the alarms. We've got another Space Wolf incident. All right. For those of you who don't know this series, we do a thing where we show Sunny the design of something and she breaks it down without knowing the lore. That's the whole purpose of this whole thing, right? Design versus lore. But obviously, the nightlords are quite iconic.
Yeah.
All right, Sunny, tell us what you know lore-wise about the nightlords.
I don't actually know anything about them. I do know their Primarch is Conrad Kurz, and I think they have they're basically vampire versions of Space Marines, as far as I know.
I am not going to answer Sunny in the affirmative or the negative on any of this. We're just letting you know what Sunny knows before all of this begins.
Let's get to it.
All right, Sunny, what can you tell us about the design of this guy right here?
So he's sporting a lot of dark colors, well, mostly just a navy blue. There's nice sort of dark steel trim. It looks really scratched up, and I won't say it's dirty. It just looks really beat up, the metal. And they're sporting a lot of that dark red. It looks like dried blood almost. They've got the nightlord symbol on their right shoulder pad, which sports that black wing shape. And their left knee has a skull on it. The right knee has a red and white looking shield. I can't really make out the shape very well, but the defining factor here would be the blood running down his eyes, which is also blacked out, which makes him look really, really scary. So I think that's basically this overall design says that he's quite creepy, and I'm afraid to go to the toilet at night.
All right, personal issues aside, is there anything else that you can tell us about his design?
No, I think based on what I already know about them, whether or not I'm correct is another thing, I think it really fits that vampiric aspect, the horror is what it's really showing through here, and I think it's good.
Okay. All right, Sunny, I've got 8 guys lined up for you this time.
Whoa, that's a lot of guys.
Yeah, it's double the usual amount, so I'm going to ask you to be a bit more rapid fire with these guys. So let's go through the first 4.
No problem. So with the first guy, as I said before, sporting a lot of dark colors, gives that ominous and eerie feeling. There seems to be some faint scribing along the pauldrons, which actually looks a little bit Nordic. And there's, bloody bone charms, and he has a blooded fist, and the left arm has some counting marks on them. The left knee has a legion number in a coffin shape, and some scribbled markings on the right knee. I can't quite tell what that is. And the right pauldron features a skull with the blood red bat wings that we see are very iconic with this design. And many of the symbols of death are being shown here, but more importantly, it's showing the sense of killing. Like the blood paired with the counting marks gives the impression of a kill streak. The bones look like prizes won from each kill, and it's very tribalistic and brutal. And the batwing and skull give that vampiric aesthetic once again.
Before we go into the design analysis, would you say that it's more tribal, or would you say that's more reminiscent of a murderer?
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a bit of both. There's that sort of the brutality aspect of it that's coming through, I suppose, with the bones, and the fact of all these other elements like the scratching and the counting of the mark and everything. It shows a very calculative aspect of them when it comes to like the murderous part of it. So it does feel a bit tribal because of the way they've arranged it.
Oh, okay. All right. How about this guy?
This one's very similar to the previous, but he looks a lot brighter and the elements are a bit more clearer with the electric charge running across the armor, but I can't tell if that's meant to be real electric charge or if it's just a motif. And there's less blood, although it is there, and there's a symbol of the Imperium it's showing through on the belt now. The left knee has the Legion number in a skull instead of a coffin this time, and the right knee has a bloodied bat handprint. The tie-in with the bats and vampires is getting clearer here. The color choice and the electrical charge large makes it seem like a storm in the night, but it also ties in with the feeling of pain, like how it would feel if you were shocked.
And as per usual, I'm not going to comment unless it's really relevant.
Yeah, which is our usual.
What about this one?
So his face looks very creepy with that scratched up metal skull. It has a very soulless look. The left knee has that coffin symbol once again, but with a lightning bolt through it this time. I'm very curious to know what all of these means because there's a consistent use of these different types of symbols, but they keep changing it around. And the right knee has the skull and a legion number as well.
And the final of the first 4.
And he looks pretty much very similar to the previous one here. And this time they decided to put a skull in the center window, which I prefer because it feels like less of an empty space. And they've arranged his bone tokens differently for more of a characteristic look with some differentiation. Now, there's a symbol on the left knee written in blood, but it's so abstract I can't derive any contextual clues from it. And the hourglass symbol on the right knee is quite interesting. I think it could denote like your time is running out.
Before we move on to the next 4, I would like you to do a bit of a micro-analysis because you may have noticed that there's a lot of similarities between them, unlike some of the other legions.
Yeah.
So what do you think overall their legion is about, just based off what you've seen thus far?
Maybe they're, well, with the dark colors, it usually is something to do with stealth some of the times when you think of it from a practical point of view. So they're probably trying to blend in. And I think when we think along the lines of blending in, maybe that's why they're very consistent in terms of design across everyone.
Okay, all right, interesting. Let's move on to the next 4. Here are the next 4. Which one would you like to take a look at?
Let's do the first one.
Go for it.
So he looks way less creepy now that he's gotten that standard marine look with the helmet. The dull metal makes it look like cold stone and adds a good visual breaker to all of the dark blue. The vampire and gore elements has been severely reduced, though.
Now our first non-standard marine. Tell us what you think of this guy.
He looks like a regular Terminator in terms of armor design, but the defining factors would be the black chains and skulls at the end along the Truges, and he also has a clawed hand weapon with a bit of blood to tie that murder element back into it. Other than that, he looks pretty much like a standard Terminator.
What do you mean, standard Terminator?
You know, a standard 30k cataphracti design Terminator.
Cataphracti?
Cataphracti. I think. Is it? What?
Moving right along to the next guy.
And then we've got the other Terminator version, which I actually forgot what this one is called, the armor variation. But with this design, we see a lot more of that iconic brutality aspect coming in with the ripped and blooded tabard, pierced skulls, bones and blood. I think it's interesting that they've got those coffin symbols attached as parchment talismans on the shin, which makes me think that there's this level of superstition around this their mentality. They must use it for some level of protective element.
And what do you think that tabard's made out of?
I guess if I really want to be on brand, it must be skin. Right?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege to avoid being incriminated by the commenters.
So I'm right then.
Moving right along. Family friendly. Right, look, there's another man.
Yes,
a metal man, yes.
Another metal dreadnought man. And with this guy, he's a big block of dark blue. And with this design, the designers want you to focus more on the silhouette rather than anything else. Because can you imagine seeing something like this approaching you slowly and heavily in the night with such a large build with claws? I think that is going to be pretty terrifying. So other than that, there is the usual elements of skulls, chains, electricity, and blood. Edgelord McGee, essentially. But yeah, I guess you get the point.
Or you could walk away slowly.
I'm walking away.
Sonny, I think that's all that we can do with these guys here as far as breakdown goes, so let's move on to Design analysis. Sonny, you've gone through 4 more templates than you usually get to go through, so tell us what you think about those designs.
Yeah, so I think it really ties in that horror. I think that is the main theme of the Nightlords, and it brings in a lot of that dark, brooding, cold, distant aspects with the color choice. It's meant to blend in with the night. You're meant to be not able to see them coming, right? They're just going to come in, attack you, and probably torture the heck out of you as well. And that really comes in with how they do the blood, where they place it, coming down from the eyes, coming down on the fist. Like, these are very powerful symbols that we can see, and something that's quite unique. I've never seen, look, Warhammer is all about the skulls, it's all about the death and the million death companies, but I've never quite seen a chapter use coffins in their actual symbolism. So I think that's a little bit more deep, like something else is going on there. So pretty much I think that's where I'm at with these guys.
All right, Sunny, you've talked a lot about their design, but let's talk about their color psychology.
Blue is generally a very positive color. It's related to stability and responsibility, things like this. But when you darken a color, it also takes on more darker traits, and the negative traits of a color comes through a lot more. And when you pair it with a color like red and dark red, traits like stubbornness, violence, depression, and anger come through a lot more. But with the pairing of blue with red, the anger actually becomes cold anger.
I think we actually see a lot of blue traits come out with them. For example, dependable, cool, competent. Those are just character profile traits for the blue, but also I think that there's other parts that come with that. For example, some of even their positive traits like confidence. But I think almost all of the negative traits come through. Sensitive, self-deprecating, stubborn, depressive, cold.
Yeah, and I think it's especially with the type of theme that they're going for, a lot of those negative aspects have come through.
But I think I might be going into the laws too much, so let's go to art. Sonny, I actually had a bit of trouble finding art for the Nightlords, but more specifically 30K art, and I'll explain that later. Let's start off with this artwork.
This artwork is very evocative. We focused a lot about how there's that terror, but that isn't really coming through with this artwork. In fact, there is, I would say, a competent danger with this artwork, right? Because you can see how big and bulky he is, and it's dark, it's brooding, but he's got that skull and those red gleaming eyes, and he's staring into you. But the pose doesn't seem like he's coming to attack you. He's just like on the ready, right? Like, look at me, I'm here, but if you come too close, I will cut you down kind of thing going on. And there's that halo coming up on the back, so it shows that sort of competent danger where he's not seen as the bad guy in this painting. And yeah, it doesn't feel like he's the bad guy in this painting. And you can see how they've created that somber mood with the rain coming down as well.
So what does it feel like then?
I think he is being portrayed as the type of person who does the dirty work. Okay, so like,
interesting.
He's the kind of person that he is a hero. He is a hero because he's doing the work that nobody else is willing to do, right?
Interesting.
Because you're getting your hands dirty doing those type of work. And I think that's what this is trying to show. Like, there's a certain level of appreciation being portrayed here.
Well, that might be the fan coming through in the artwork. So
perhaps,
this character is called Talos, and for Talos fans, tell us what you think.
Yeah, tell me if I was really off or if I hit it on the nail.
All right, let's move on to the next piece of art.
With this artwork, it's a little bit more clean. It's not dark and brooding at all, probably because of the main character being portrayed here, which is a dark angel. The city behind them is being set ablaze, and you've got two nightlords facing off against this dark angel. And the way things are composed here, it's showing that the dark angel is the hero of this story. So the nightlords are being shown as the bad guys in this one, especially since the artist has taken the liberty to showcase that piece of stretched face skin on the other nightlord on the corner. So it's showing them to be the bad guys in this one.
Okay, so you think that the face stretched over the thing, it just makes them a bad guy, full stop?
Because it's obviously something that shows that murderous intent, the sense of, I wouldn't quite say evil. It's definitely not something that's pleasant to look at. No hero does that, right? They don't flay the face of their enemy and put it onto themselves or something like that. So I would say that
this is 40K, to be fair.
Yeah, but I still think that, I mean, if you were someone who didn't know anything about 40K and you took a look at this artwork.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
That is definitely the kind of impression I would get.
Yeah, and here is our final piece of artwork.
With this artwork, there is some wording there which will change the context of how this is portrayed, right? So it's black and white. They're somber in terms of its tone, but it also feels very quiet, very silent, It's just the nightlords and his team behind him, and there's that calculative sense about it, right? Because he's just there. He's just standing standing there with holding on to his sword, and he's waiting for something to come his way, right? And the words read, "Die as you lived, son of the 8th Legion, in midnight clad." So here it's showing them in a more positive light, even though their design elements show them to be bad. Like they look more like a chaos, right? With those demonic ears with the bat wings on their head, things like that, sharp edgings and things like that. It's hard to see them as the good guy with these sorts of shape design, but with the way that they're posed, the color choice of them being in just purely black and white, it shows them to be silent and waiting and looking to prowl in the night.
Well, I think that about covers it. Let's move on to Design versus lore. All right, Sunny, if you could give us a quick summary of what you think the nightlords are about before I reveal their lore behind them.
I have a feeling that the nightlords are like the mafia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, keep going.
So they are the bad guys, you know, in terms of like the societal view and from a legal perspective as well. But, you know, they're also doing the jobs that no one else is willing to do, right?
Well, usually the mafia extort people, but keep going.
Yes, extortion. Yeah, they could also extort. They look like people who would extort, and you know. And they
Keep going.
They'll do the dangerous things like, you know, terror and torment. These not so great tactics, right? To get what they need out of their enemies.
Oh, interesting.
Or
okay.
to help whoever who has asked them for help. They're not going to go about it in a very noble way.
Ah, okay. All right.
They're just going to be, they're there to show that I'm dangerous and I'm doing it this way for a reason because you're not meant to come near me. You're supposed to fear me so that you don't come and mess with my people.
All right. So, guys, just so you know, I don't tell Sunny any of the lore until this part right now. I keep her deliberately in the dark. So, comment below and tell us how close you think she is, because I reckon she's pretty dang close.
Oh, yeah.
So, Sunny, are you ready to hear about the history? Okay, all right. So, you were right in one regard. The reason why we didn't have a pre-heresy picture of the nightlords is because before that, they were only known as the 8th.
As the 8th. Okay,
yep.
okay.
And the Emperor is quoted as saying, "Send the 8th," whenever there was somebody who had betrayed them or somebody who had somehow gone against the new Imperium.
They're the Punishers.
Well, in one way, yes, but they were always meant to be the Terror Legion.
Yes, okay.
So they were recruited from the literal dregs of society, the people who lived underground. And one of the mutations that is given to them is they have night vision. So every time that they're operating during the day, they actually have to have visors on so that they can see without being blinded.
Right. That's actually really cool. And I think that, bats are blind even like 24/7.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. I thought it was something to try to link back with the bats thing, but yeah, no, that's a different thing.
But a lot of their lore is centered around their Primarch, as of course many legions are, but them in particular are very focused on their Primarch, Conrad Kurz.
And why is that?
He completely changed their homeworld, Nostramo. Nostramo was exactly what you said. It was an entirely crime-infested world, almost 100% crime. All crime all the time, right? It's this perpetually night swaddled world. And when he came to it, he transformed it. And the way he transformed it was through pure terror.
That makes a lot of sense because when you're dealing with such a large amount of quote unquote evil or criminal activity, being the good guy is not going to help.
Yes, but he did it all by himself. Unlike everyone else who they joined an army, became a leader, that sort of thing. He did it all by himself.
Is it because he was Batman?
He has been referred to as evil Batman, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
But the way that he took over was by broadcasting torture sessions so that people would just comply. They'd just start obeying the law. And essentially, he frightened people into servitude, essentially.
It's effective.
So people would rather starve than actually commit crime to feed themselves.
Yeah, oh, wow. Okay, so I have more questions, but maybe we should move on to...
No, ask you a question.
Yeah, okay, so I can see that this is good, right? Like he's doing the good thing by doing the bad things. But if
Okay.
if people are willing to starve themselves instead of resorting to criminal activity, how is sort of the world getting better in terms of economy and stability and things like that?
So it did get better because people just basically did their jobs and it prospered in that way,
okay.
right? But there was a small problem. Once he joined his legion, he'd left there. And when he left there, the issue became that source of terror is gone. So what happened to the world?
People went back to the old ways.
Exactly.
Oh
and
my
see, this is
God.
one of his big things. He's like, listen, I'm a force for good because I make sure that people comply without killing as many people. When you compare him to, for example, the Khorne people, the world eaters, right?
Yep.
They just come on and they're like, you're going to comply or you're going to die. And he's like, listen, I just have to go into systems and people are like,
Yeah, no, don't do anything. It's the scary man. It's the scary man.
Like the thing is, they'll just surrender. But the problem is, once they're gone, what happens next?
Yeah, the threat is now gone, and so they're like, okay, I go back to my old ways now.
Exactly, and so
Yeah, that is an issue.
For some of it was really good because the Imperial forces would roll through, a whole lot of solar auxiliaries would drop down, and they'd enforce the Imperial Creed, and everything's fine. It's great, but there's other times when they're just like, all right, well, they're gone, so
We can do our funny business back again, but I think that's where, like, I think it's an excellent tactic using sort of terror and threats rather than like actually killing people. But you need something else to supplement it so that you know it stays that way.
Yes, and so what happened was all of his recruits came from his homeworld, and of course now they're all the criminals.
Right.
Because he was no longer there enforcing that peace that he had made.
Right. Oh, that's sad. That's really sad.
And when I say they're the criminals, they are the worst kind of criminals. Let's just say that they run vineyards and such.
Vineyards, okay.
Grapes.
Oh, okay. Sure. All right, I see.
That wasn't a mafia reference.
Anyway, let's move on to
Final notes. Sonny, you've now learnt some of the lore behind the nightlords. Is there anything that you would change in what you've said about their design?
No, I don't think I would change that much about it because, like we said, and after hearing the lore, it's all about the terror tactics. And it shows 100% that terror of through the dark colors, the blood, you know, and the markings where they sort of cross out how many people they've killed, tormented, what have you. I think all these elements really showcase how they are the terror religion.
Yeah, well, I don't think I have anything to add, so I guess we should move on to Post-Heresy design breakdown. Post-Heresy design breakdown.
Yes, we can. Yes.
As per usual, I'm going to show you some images of dudes. But the first one I would like you to take a look at of these four is this guy right here.
Right, okay. I can tell this is now the chaos version because of all the spiky trims, but
Yep.
it does look really overkill and funny with the gold trims going on because of along the mouth and the jaw.
I get what you're saying.
What's going on over there? Oh, they're wearing braces. They've got braces this time, yes. Ironically, the chaos design only makes their design even more solidified because this is like the ultimate version of the nightlords design. I can see that they've added on the gold as well instead of the silver. So this actually looks a lot like evil space marines. Sorry, evil ultramarines.
Yes, now some people will be upset
Yes,
with you.
because they do also categorize ultramarines under space marines as well. Like
Yes.
they interchangeable term.
All space marine, all ultramarines are space marines, but
not all space marines are ultramarines.
Yes,
exactly.
correct.
Yes, and I think they already have that chaos vibe now. It's just adding on the spikes. Yeah.
So the reason I wanted to show you that guy first is this is sort of the first view we ever had of the nightlords.
Right, yeah, okay.
Right, these are the first designs we got of them. So let's take a look at the other more cartoonish styles.
Yeah,
so what do you think of this guy?
I've got one thing to say, Cal.
What's that?
What are those? What the F is up, Cal? That is what I see with this guy. I mean, that face just kills all of the terror. He's like an advanced Minecraft monster. Like, can you imagine? Like, that's the face. Like that, you know? Yeah. He's looking very vibrant and galactical with the more saturated colors here. The golf visor shades definitely add to the sci-fi aesthetic.
Oh my god.
The bonding studs are also customized to be spiky, so that is still tying in with the hostility of the nightlords. But other than that, I would say this is the worst design thus far because it's so derpy.
Yeah, okay, well, you've
But
got
he's
opinions
also
and you're not
he's my
afraid of
favorite.
hiding them. So,
I will play this version of nightlords. If I play nightlords, I want that guy. He's going to be my captain.
all right, we're moving on. So we have this guy next. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this one and the other one that we're going to talk about next look very similar, so I'm just going to speed run through this one. And with the Primaris update, I quite like the gold trims and the electric motifs. It adds visual interest to this very plain design, which is to be expected of the Primaris armor. A lot of the gore and terror elements are removed, but as far as Primaris armor goes, this is quite exciting.
That's because I don't think it is Primaris
This is
armor.
not Primaris.
Well, we'll see.
It is Primaris. Look his mouth. Look his
Okay.
mouth there. This is Primaris, I'm very sure.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
So this is Primaris, yes? This one?
No.
Yes, this is
The
Primaris.
Chaos do not have Primaris.
Then why does he look like that? Okay, anyway, he's got like much thicker sort of gold, but I think it's closer to a brass, which I think it's more fitting because we've talked about...
Maybe a burnished gold? I wouldn't call it a brass.
It's quite like the warm gold, like close to like bronzy. Like I feel that's the color that's being used here. It's not quite like a gold.
Okay, all
And I
right.
think that is good because we've talked about how Chaos uses a lot of bronze and things like that because it has the correlation to brutality, and I think that matches. But he's not as exciting as the previous guy because the previous guy at least had bonding studs and something a little bit more, but he's all right for what he is.
All right, Sonny, you want to know what the problem with you is?
What?
You are so sure of yourself. So this is Mark IV Maximus Power Armor. It is not Primaris armor. But for a minute there, I'm just like, wait, no, I've got to check my notes because you're just like, yeah, no, it's Primaris armor. I know what I'm talking
Because
about.
I've been talking about this armor with all our other legions, and they look like that. That's
So
the template
the
they
face
use.
mask does look very similar, and the guards do look very similar, but that is not Primaris armor.
Well, even if that's the case, right? None of the chaos elements are showing here. There are no spikes. There's no chaos symbol. There's no that over-the-top asymmetrical design. So it is actually quite confusing.
All right, well, let's go off that and let's do a tiny bit of design analysis. What do you think that means? Just real quick, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Well, I would just immediately say that he's probably not part of the chaos faction. Like, it's maybe a transitionary period going into the chaos area, but not quite there yet. Maybe
Okay.
That's the best I can say because like there's a very clear format with Warhammer how they do their designs.
Yeah.
With like, okay, if it's chaos, it looks a particular way. If it's not chaos, it looks a particular way. So I really have no idea what's going on with this one.
Okay, great. Thanks for that feedback. Now let's move on to the next four.
Yeah, now these look way more like chaos. Yeah, so shall we start with the first one?
Yeah, go for it.
We're seeing those standard chaos trims and patterning here, but with the way the exhaust is shaped, it's very fitting for their theme, although we do see this exact sort of shape with raptors for the Emperor's Children. I think the chaos design is more fitted for this vampire/bat-like motifs that they sport a lot with, and this is more fitting for them.
Well, what do you think of the difference between this jump pack guy and this one?
Well, this one is like really noisy in terms of his design, but that's expected
Very
with
noisy. Yeah,
well,
you're right.
chaos. It's chaotic. It's a chaotic design, so it matches in that sense. The brutality and hostility aspect comes through very well with all the sharp elements. There's some gore would really tie things in a little bit more because that's what they have been known to have in the 30K design. And I think if they just brought that a bit bit more in, that would really be the cherry on top. But other than that, this just looks like your standard Chaos template, but they just put the Nightlord coloring on top, basically.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to say I was a bit thrown by that, but let's move on.
Yeah, so with this next guy, I'm sorry, Cal, I think I'm gonna probably have a similar opinion because the design thus far seems very copy and paste in terms of the template for Chaos because everything looks exactly the same as the Iron Warriors version when they turned Chaos, if you remember those designs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just that now it's a midnight blue and it has the Chaos symbol on the tab art. It doesn't feel original, which is quite disappointing because the Chaos designs is where these legions really get to shine with the expressive designs, but it's just the Nightlord version of X at the moment.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, you got opinions, but let's move on to the final one then. Okay, so this is our more cartoonish Terminator one. As you can see, it's an older picture.
He has a rhino horn.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, this feels a little more original. I do see that he's got that eye symbol on his knee. A lot of 40k characters seem to have that. I think I saw Horus wearing it one time.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm not too sure what is that about. But
do you think it might be an eye, perhaps, of Horus?
Oh, I see. So other than that, it's got the standard Nightlord features of black chain, spoked skulls, and electric charge. The ram's horn skull is symbolic of the devil, so it matches the evil theme.
You mean the shoulder pad horn thing,
yes.
Not the other horn.
Yeah, not the other horn. So this one's on the shoulder pad. And as I mentioned before, their pre-heresy design isn't exactly a different tone. This is like the same thing, so it's not that much different, but when it comes to that rhino horn, we have talked about how it's a symbol of defiance.
Yes.
And I think that is very fitting because of how, it is an act of defiance when you sort of go like a traitor legion. So I think that's actually quite fitting, and I like that they've brought that in, actually.
I like your analysis thus far. It's actually been pretty interesting.
Oh, that's great.
So here is the final four.
So, okay, first two guys look very similar again, like the Chaos templates that we have seen previously with other legions, like Emperor's Children and Iron Warriors. What I am trying to look for here is anything that is specifically identifiable that is to the Nightlords, because with the Emperor's Children, we saw that like the large gaping mouths had a significance. There was something there, right? But this one, it doesn't have it. And it's very quite disappointing. Other than these like sort of ribbed metal designs, I guess that could be taken as a stylistic variation of a skeletal
So you're
system.
just saying that this guy looks like standard Chaos with just essentially Nightlord's coloring.
Exactly.
All right, can we move on to the next one?
I much prefer this one where they go back to the bat ears.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, because like the previous one was like this like a gazelle horns, and that's not iconic. Right? So I like that they've gone back to the bat wings, a lot of use of that brassy gold. And again, we see these steel piping type things along the thighs, which looks like a skeletal ribbing. So
Okay.
I think that's on theme, but I feel like there could be more.
Yeah, no, I understand what you say when I feel like there could be more, because that thigh patterning, I'm fairly sure, is just standard Chaos. But this is what I think of when I think of the standard Nightlord Trooper.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yes. I would agree with you. It looks like a standard Nightlord Trooper. But would you say it would be fitting for a 30k design, or would you say it's a Chaos Nightlord Trooper?
I would say that it's a Chaos Nightlord Trooper, primarily because of that asymmetric design that we talk about.
Fair. Can we skip over this next guy?
Why?
Because it's a repeat of the one that we did earlier, but it's slightly different.
So you'd say almost everything the same about the previous guy that you'd say about this one?
Pretty much.
Okay, well, I guess just put that up then. With this one, it's sort of on the border of whether it's an artwork or not, but let's hear what you have to say.
It's definitely not like the standard template, but it looks very aggressive with those massive tusks that are larger than the head. So it's really good because it really shows that sort of aggressive terror tactics coming into play with this design. I like the use of the weapons that they're showing there, the sharp saw axe. I'm not really sure what these weapons are called, but he's got all of the standard nightlord features here. I do like the skull with the chaos spokes at the back.
That's much more a classic sort of symbol of it.
Is it?
Yeah. So that's how chaos used to sort of be pictured like that.
Okay, because I was trying to see that felt a bit like a variation of the symbols that the nightlords use, but then they brought the chaos symbol with what they already have. So I thought that was at least something clever, but if it's what chaos is, then I guess there's nothing much to say.
Okay, well, let's move on to something where you can say something. Design analysis. Sunny, you've gone through all of the 30K and 40K designs now. Is there anything which is a sharp difference for you?
I would just say the change from the dark steel to the gold, which actually gives a little bit more of that ostentatious feel. There is way more chaotic elements going on. A lot more design elements are being packed into one place, which is, again, very common with the chaos designs. But like I said earlier, the chaos design is just what they were in 30K, just taken up a notch to the next level.
Well, you did say with a lot of them that instead of them feeling like nightlords, they felt like generic chaos.
I did say that because, like I said, it was just a reuse of the template. I was really looking for something that would be special to the nightlords that's been customized to the template, but I didn't really see any of that, and that was the disappointing bit.
Because there was no individual elements which you felt really represented them.
Yeah, I felt like they could have tried to do something with those counting marks like they used to, bring back some of those coffin elements or the gore. Maybe they've got maybe they would paint some markings, tribal markings with blood on their face. Something like that, just a little something that would tie back with their values, quote unquote values or culture of the nightlords.
Yep.
But there wasn't really much there.
Well, I think some people may be disappointed to hear what you've said here, but I don't think that they could deny it if they took a look at what we've seen. The difference, I'd have to say that I agree with you that they do feel very generically chaos with a lot of those design templates.
I also would like to point out that their 30K design was way scarier.
Yeah.
It was way scarier than the Chaos designs.
But hasn't that been the case for all of the various legions that we've looked at, that the 30K design is almost always more evocative?
Yes, it is. I just sort of...
Except for the Imperial Fists, who have no flavor, apparently.
Tofu ice cream. But anyhow, what I'm trying to get at is Chaos is meant to be the scarier entity here. The thing that strikes fear and terror into your heart. And although the nightlords, that is their tactic, I feel like their 30K design showcased that fear and terror more than it did with the chaos design, and I think that was quite ironic and contradictory.
Well, it's almost as if we might be hinting at something for the redesign, but let us move on to art. Well, Sunny, it's time to show you some art. So, here's our first piece.
Right, with this one, it looks like they're being chased away, the nightlords. Is that the blood angels?
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, so in this one, it doesn't look like they're fighting as ferociously of any sort. I believe it's because of the posing here, but it definitely looks like the Blood Angels are trying to chase them off in this battle. And the only one that kind of looks like he's actually trying to get somewhere is the one in the cornermost right with the tusks. But other than that, I'm having a bit of trouble understanding how they got here.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So what is the feel you get from this?
It's like he got shot and it's like, what? Stop shooting at me. Stop. What are you doing? What are you doing?
All right, fair enough. On to the next. Thoughts on this one?
Now, this feels way more nightlordy. So, obviously, the Imperial Guard, he's got a flare. He's, looking around in the darkness, trying to fight off whatever is in the darkness. But lo and behold, does he know the Nightlord is standing right behind him. And if this is the Chaos version, then he's definitely in for a fun time.
Yeah, I don't think he is. So from an art background, is there anything you can tell us about this?
There's a lot of use of deep shadows, one, and a lot of use of red. And when you see a lot of red in a painting, obviously, it's to evoke that feeling of terror or horror. And you see this a lot in films as well, when they use a lot of red lighting and something dangerous is about to happen.
Yep.
And I think that is what they're trying to capture here with this one, which is very fitting for the Nightlords.
I would say that's fair. All right, on to the next.
This one feels very much like a horror movie poster.
It does.
You can see like everything is quite shrouded in darkness. He's coming from a dark entryway himself, and the only thing that's lit, and it's underlit, like from under his face, right? Which is a classic lighting style for when you're trying to show something in a horror aspect or something to scare someone. And he's got blood on his hands. He's coming out. There's electricity sparking in the background.
No, there isn't electricity sparking in the background.
There's wires.
No. So take a look at those sparks, and they're actually coming off his armor coming through the door. So that would be a scraping noise.
Oh, is that right? Because I see these wires that have been cut, and the sparks are coming from the ends of those.
I don't think that is. I think it's from the...
See?
Oh, okay, yeah. No, it looks like you were right.
Yeah, so like, can you imagine, like, you're probably hearing some weird noises and like stomping, and then it's like, oh, what's happening? What's coming? And then suddenly you see these red eyes with the skin on his arm with this grinning face like that, and everything's sharp. Oh, they look absolutely terrified, the Imperial Guard.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty fair. I think that is the most fair reaction anyone has ever had ever.
It's like, surprise!
But with that scraping thing, I think it might even be within the nightlord's nature. That's why I thought it was scraping. The nightlord's nature, that they'd actually do that deliberately to terrify them. That scraping noise coming as they go through the door.
Exactly. And it's all part of the terror tactics. And,
all right. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah. And with this one, it's a portrait. And oh my God, look at that face. He's extremely pale. Like, I can see the eyes. There's nothing there. There's that soulless look in his eyes, and he's got red.
If you were his mother, would you love him? I think that says it all.
I'd be. I don't want to answer such questions. Okay, this is very sad now. But look, he's got spikes coming out of his skull, and his grin is all the way up. Yeah, it's really pushing that, that beast-like mutated horror. And that is what's being shown here. And I think, once again, it's fitting for the nightlords. And is this something that happens to them afterwards? Or is this how they've always looked under the mask?
They haven't always looked like this. And this is why I chose this piece of art. But I think we'll really need to do a big distinction in design versus lore. All right, Sunny, I'd like you to scroll down this funny comic. It's called Before Chaos, After Chaos.
Okay, and you've got the Death Guard, and he's okay, and now he's very happy after turning to Nurgle.
Yep.
Got Emperor's children, and he's sparkly, and now I don't know, everything's lewd in the background.
Yes.
That's why it's all pixelated. And then the Nightlords, there's no difference.
Yes, and this is one of the big points that I wanted to get to.
Yeah, which is what I've also mentioned with our previous analysis, is like, there's not much difference, So
there's two things with the Nightlords. First off is, now you can see why I had such trouble getting art from either period, because I had to choose it based on how the enemies looked more than anything else.
Oh.
See, it was about whether they were fighting pre-heresy or post-heresy guys.
Oh.
And I believe when I took some of those images, look guys, if you've caught me out and some of the 30k images are 40k or vice versa, look, I'm just going to, put my hands up and say, well,
It's difficult to tell.
Yeah.
Same here. Like, when I was trying to look for certain artworks, I'm like, that doesn't look 40k, but I've seen the 30k design variation that also looks like this, so is it or isn't it? Yeah.
The other thing is, they just didn't stop fighting.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, when it came to all of the Horus Heresy, right, there seems to be this defined end point of the heresy, which is the Siege of Terror.
Okay, yes.
And after that, it's the Scouring, and it's all set up like this. The Nightlords never had that. They just kept fighting all the time.
But any enemies that they might have, like, even after they turned traitor?
Well, the thing is that they didn't really have a period of time where they weren't fighting against someone, right?
Yeah, okay.
Because they were given an unenviable task.
Oh, and what's this task?
Before I go on, one of the things that the Nightlords have sort of been hit with is, both in lore and outside of lore, is that they are the weakest of all of the Space Marines.
Oh, are they?
I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about their legion, their tactics, all of this sort of thing. They were always considered the weakest. And do you know what Horus tasked them with?
What? What did they task him with?
Stopping the Dark Angels.
What do you mean?
I mean, stopping the Dark Angel Legion. Stopping the Lion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's not gonna have a good time fighting that guy.
And you want to know what's worst?
Yeah.
This is when Conrad was already degrading. So Conrad, the reason that he turned traitor, many think is because of his visions of the future. He saw Nostromo burning. He saw his father sending assassins after him. He had all of these negative visions. And this is a big rabbit hole. But here is one quote that I want to give to you, which is because we're talking about his legion.
Okay.
I spoke with Angron and Lorgar not long ago. They told me of their purges, the cleansing of the untrustworthy elements from the 12th and the 17th. I laughed when they said it, at the sheer absurdity of the idea. They knew exactly when to stop killing the weak, the treacherous, and the corrupt within their bloodline. I wouldn't know where to begin culling mine.
There was one thing that Gilliman could never account for with his precious Codex Astartes, which was the interference of a Primarch. A Primarch in a battle with other Space Marines is the deciding factor. It is the Primarch who drives whether somebody would win or lose. And at this point in time, and for perhaps for a long time, Conrad hated his legion.
Oh my goodness gracious. And why? Is it because it's made up of criminals?
Because it's made up of criminals. Because
Right.
it's made up of the people who he has always hated.
Yeah, the people he was trying to fight against. Yeah, okay, that's fair.
But as you know, the Space Marines have a genetic loyalty to their Primarch.
Yes.
So they were loyal to someone who hated them.
Oh.
They're almost the opposite of the Iron Lords. The sons of Perturabo hated their Primarch, whereas they were hated. The sons
their
of
Primarch,
the sons of Perturabo looked at chaos as a physical weakness, whereas it seems that many of the nightlords looked at it as a spiritual weakness. Though some did embrace it, there's a lot that goes into it. Check out the Nightlord Omnibus, as if we have to tell anyone. So there's been a very long preamble for me to get to this. The nightlords do fit their lord. Their design does fit their lord.
Yes, it does.
And the reason for this is, despite the fact that they're meant to be terrifying people, right? When we take a look at how they terrify people, it's rather mundane. It's not really that interesting. But of course it's not, because they're criminals, because they're lowlives, because they're people who were just barely brought off the rung of the ladder. They were never elevated in any way, unlike many of the other people who were in the other legions. For example, I can't talk about that just yet.
I almost spoiled the next legion.
But there is one thing that you have 100% gotten wrong.
Oh, okay, what's that?
They are not vampires in any way, shape, or form.
They're not vampires. I don't know where I got the
I'd say
concept.
probably the coffins, the bat wings, all of this sort of motif.
Yeah, no, I think it might have been because we talked about it in another video, and then I was like, oh yeah, they're vampires. Yeah, let's do
I
it.
don't think we did. I think
I
you came up
clearly
with that on
remember.
your
I
own. Yeah,
clearly
no, I'm going to
remember.
blame you.
No. Well, does that mean we should move on to
Final notes.
All right, Cal, so here are my final thoughts after hearing all of the lore, and I think you won't be surprised by my answer.
Okay, hit me with it.
They match the lore.
Yeah, they do. They do for a lot of it, but they shouldn't. I think when you talked about a lot of their chaos updates,
Yeah.
how you were saying, look, it's just a Night Lord color swatch on a chaos look. I think that was 100% spot on, and I think that there was some other things that they really should have done.
Yeah, do you have any ideas? Because I've mentioned my ideas, which is that they could have reincorporated that gore a little bit more, like the stitched skin stuff, things like that. They could have done that.
So they do that with the actual miniatures. That's in it a lot. However, we don't see a lot of the actual miniatures here.
Yes.
You might get to see some of it now that you're doing the editing.
That's true, that's true.
However, I think a lot of my ideas need to be in the next section, which is redesign. So there is something that I think that the nightlords have been lacking, which is this idea of psychological terror. When it comes to a lot of them, there is psychological fear with them, right? But there is a difference between fear and terror. Fear is knowing that there's something in the dark with you, that there's something that doesn't belong. Terror is so much different. And I'm going to borrow a quote from Stephen King. Terror, when you come home and notice that everything you own had been taken away and replaced by an exact substitute. It's when the lights go out and you feel something behind you. You hear it. You feel its breath on your ear. But when you turn around, there's nothing there. My idea for the nightlords is the Nightmares. A single squad of space marines that were dropped on non-compliant worlds, sent to terrorize the populace into the idea of non-compliance being a complete impossibility.
Yeah, I like this idea. Very, very nightlord. So how will we show it?
Alright, for those who are new to this series, let's make sure that you guys know that we come at this from the idea of making stuff that Games Workshop could sell.
Yeah, so it has to be practical in terms of the design.
Yeah, but more than that, it's got to be something which they can sell. So some of the times we're going to pull back a bit on some of these horror elements.
Yes.
Well, I think that there should be two versions of them. First, there should be, for want of a better word, the loyalist version or the pre-heresy version. This would follow most of the standard Levkoi stuff that we see, where it's just incorporating those core elements of the Legion and making them much more prominent, making them feel more like what they're meant to be.
Yeah, and if we take a look at these helmet designs here, and I think that totally represents the aspect of the psychological terror that you've been talking about, because they look like horrors of the night, and you wouldn't want to experience this in the middle of the night.
No.
Yeah, so it's like me and my fear of ghosts. You know, this is it. This is I don't want to wake up to this.
No one wants to wake up to this. Trust me on that. Now, the other idea would be the chaos version. So instead of having chest armor, you can see their organs beating inside them.
Oh, that's so
you
gross.
can feel that sense of pervading terror coming towards.
It's like showing what will happen to you.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because like this is what I'm showing that you will now experience.
Yes, but not just that, but totemic masks. And this is much more the idea of the undivided, whereas there's more specialist ones. And like, for example, on the shoulder pads, you could have mist pouring out of them. You could have, for example, some sort of creature living on the shoulder pad.
Yeah. Like, you know, like how some, like with the space wolves, they would have fur coats.
Yeah.
Maybe this could be their version of quote unquote fur coat.
Yeah, except instead it's living people.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, there's people like reaching out, just
Like,
screaming,
help
"Save me!"
Ugh, disgusting. This is really quite terrifying. What happened to the lights?
Yeah, so guys, we literally had a blackout as we're recording this, and we can only record because it's on laptop power.
Honey, they're ghosts.
No, there are no ghosts, honey.
Okay.
So with that, you can see the feel of the psychological horror. Not just fear, but horror. And this idea of this particular unit could be very incorporated into other Chaos armies.
Definitely, yes.
It could be the iconic Nightlord unit. Now, iconically, they have been the default Raptors.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right? And they've been this idea of these screaming insane people. But I think the idea of the Nightmares really fits them a lot better.
Yeah, and I think it gives them a little bit more depth. Like, they're not just like, oh, they have bat motifs since the beginning, so let's just make them the flying people when they turn chaos. So I think this gives it a little bit more of, you know, a thought.
Yeah, a little more flavor. And I think that they would work really well as something that people would want to buy, because you take a look at them, right? You've got both the classic variety, the chaos variety.
Yeah, it creates more options for the players, and you don't have to worry about where or what you're buying. You can just buy it as a kit, and you can put them wherever you like and mess around with it.
Yeah, for example, you could have them in a straight Chaos army, or you could have them in a dedicated Nightlords army, because they're almost solo operators.
Yeah.
When I say solo operators, I mean they operate just as their group. I know solo operator is
Yeah,
a
just
term
as
in
their
the
one
game now.
squad, but it gives you more options. It just makes it a more versatile product.
All right, Sunny, is there anything that you think that we've missed with any of this?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it really well.
Well, all I have to say is... Oh, no.
Honey, is it the Nightlords? Are they coming after us?
Well, I do know that there's one thing we've got to do before we go.
What's that?
Keep those brushes wet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You know, we've had some remarkable luck when it comes to a lot of these things. For example, you remember with the Lancer, there's that, technological god, and that's where our sound starts stuffing up.
Oh, yes.
And so we do the Nightlords, and we literally have a power outage as we're describing, the nightmares.
And the psychological terror that they will strike upon you.
Well, look, here's the thing about the Nightlords. I was thinking that...